Ladies and gentlemen, have you wondered recently about why the weather is as bizarre as it is? Hailstones all over the world, flooding taking place, hurricanes, tornadoes, volcanoes beginning to disrupt the atmosphere in some areas. I'm going to tell you a story today, and I'm going to give you a brand new word. Most of you have heard about climate change. It's all over the news. I'm going to give you a word that connects the weather to the spiritual possibilities of, at times, what is happening with what we call Revelation chapter 12 cosmic warfare. And that is atmospheric warfare or atmospheric transitions. Before I get into this in great detail, let me just say that there is a spiritual side to everything, because all truth is parallel. You have the natural and you have the spiritual. And many times natural events have a spiritual connotation or connection with them. Hebrews chapter 12 and verse 26, God says this, that he would shake not only the earth one more time, but also he would shake the heavens. In 3 of the Gospels, and remember there are 4 Gospels in the New Testament, but in 3 of them, Christ is recorded as saying that the powers of heaven shall be shaken. Now we know that we have to have the sun, we have to have the 4 seasons of winter, spring, summer, and fall. Because really in the winter, that's what kills a lot of the viruses floating around, the germs, and even kills off some bugs that need to be removed from the planet. So you have to have those seasons for things to operate properly. You have to have rain, and the Bible said rain should come in due season. And even the festivals of Israel were centered around the rain cycles, the seed planting time, and the harvest cycles. You got to have hot and cold, as I said a moment ago. Cold has its purposes. But the weather has just really got weird. I have no other way of saying it than we have weird weather patterns with the number of hurricanes, tornadoes, excessive rain, lightning strikes. That's another thing, lightning strikes. I'm going to tell you something about lightning strikes in a minute that just blew my mind several years ago. So here's what we have. We have natural weather patterns. April showers bring May flowers. Everybody knows that you're going to get rain normally in the month of April. And you get the growth and the result of that rain usually in the month of May. But we also have what we call natural weather cycles. There's La Nino, El Nino, and all these weather cycles that the weather channels and weather experts talk about. But here's one that no one on the weather stations will mention, because maybe they're unfamiliar with it, and maybe they just realize most people wouldn't believe it. Spiritual war that happens in the heavenlies can impact weather on the earth. Now, I'm going to tell you something that's the most bizarre thing I can ever remember happening. Several years ago, we did a warfare conference at Tampa, Florida. In fact, I say several. This has been many, many years ago. We went to Tampa, Florida with the Without Walls Church, and we were hosting a warfare conference in the month of June. I stood at a hotel and watched something that I could not believe. Now, I could see the church parking lot, the edge of it, from the hotel, and the Daystar truck, Marcus Lamb had sent the Daystar truck up to tape on Daystar Live some of our conference. Lo and behold, there were 40 lightning strikes. Now, this is like 2 hours before church. 40 lightning strikes, not lightning in the air. It was from the sky to the ground. The alarm went off in the Daystar truck. It hit the church. It blew out half of the PA system before our conference began that night. And it blew out transformers. It blew out power. And I'm telling you, every day, now that was the start of the conference, but every day, lightning was all over the place, and it seemed like it was trying to hinder the entire conference. When the conference ended, weather was perfect. I also saw in that same city in the month of March, there was a big tent up. We went and had a tent meeting, and that was back in the day. I remember a number of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were attending this church. Some of them were there that night. If they're watching, they'll remember this. The weather got absolutely so cold that we had to wear gloves into the tent in the month of March in Tampa, Florida. That normally doesn't happen. Then we had a situation where a storm got under the tent, and I had to preach real fast, and I preached in 15 minutes because the danger, and I remember some of the NFL players, these big guys, were trying to hold the poles down to keep the poles from bouncing up and down in that tent, bringing the tent down on people. And I dismissed service, and all the storm ended. It was weird. And so the pastor of the church and my staff with me said, this is demonic warfare. It's not normal. Here's the thing. If it's not normal, and it's not natural, and it's not a natural cycle, it's not a natural pattern, it is then supernatural. And if it's supernatural, you've got to understand what's taking place. Now, we were taping in Israel. We don't do TV programs there now. We do our YouTube channel programs from Israel with phone. So we were headed to the Dead Sea, and it started raining at the Dead Sea. And of course, the Dead Sea does get rain from time to time. That's how, you know, that they have underground water there, of course, because of the water running down the mountains, coming underground, etc. But I saw something I've never seen before. And my guide, Yossi, who has been a guide ever since I was touring Israel in the 80s with me, said, in my lifetime, I've never seen this. The Dead Sea looked like the ocean. I don't know how big the waves to me look 3 and 4 feet tall. The wind was blowing the Dead Sea. You could not go to the Dead Sea. You could not walk. They had a warning out not to walk down there. I'm not saying it not happened before, but it was the weirdest weather that I've ever seen at the Dead Sea. Now, people can simply say climate's change, but let me just talk to you for a moment about this. There have always been weather cycles. In the Old Testament, there was a flood for 40 days and 40 nights. In Ezra chapter 10, verse 13, most of you don't know this, the rain was hindering the rebuilding of Jerusalem and the temple. In the Old Testament, there were droughts that lasted 42 months in the time of Elijah, 7 years, a drought in the time of Elisha. They were eating dove's dung and donkey brains to survive. We also know that in the time of Joseph, there was a 7-year global drought where there was no rain, and Joseph spared the world by collecting grain for 7 years. Now, this is Old Testament. This is before carbon footprints, airplanes, cars, and everything being blamed for the weather crisis today. This is before that. So that shows you weather patterns. And it shows you even, I'm going to talk about this, warfare patterns. In the tribulation, there will be a drought for 42 months, Revelation 11:6. Revelation 16, verse 12, the Euphrates River is going to dry up during the tribulation. So I'm going to call this atmospheric transition by weather warfare, or warfare that links with the weather. Now watch this. In the time of Job, Satan came before God and wanted to attack Job and tempt Job. So God said, okay, I'm going to give you limited authority to do what you want to do. Now notice what Satan did. This was Satan. This was not God doing this. While a servant of Job came to him to tell him about some trouble that came with nomadic tribes stealing his animals, I quote, while he was speaking, another also came and said, the fire of God fell from heaven and burned up the sheep and his servants and consumed them all, and I alone have escaped to tell you. Job 1:16. Now this was more than likely a lightning storm. We talked about the one in Tampa, 40 lightning strikes. And this is probably a lightning storm because in the earlier days they considered that the fire of God. Lightning was called the fire of God from heaven, and this is what the servant said had happened. Now, notice this, that while he was speaking, another came and said, your sons and daughters were eating and drinking wine in their oldest brother's house, and suddenly a great wind came from across the wilderness and struck the four corners of the house, and it fell on the young people, and they are all dead, and I am alone, have escaped to tell you. Job chapter 1, 18 through 19. Now here is an example, and I don't know how he does this, because Ephesians chapter 2 and verse 2 calls Satan the prince of the power of the air. And this is atmospheric warfare. This was created by Satan. So we have lightning coming. We have a whirlwind that came from the wilderness and literally was so devastating that it took a house down with 10 children in it. And this was the result of Satan's power. Now, how much authority does Satan have to control a storm or a weather? I can't tell you that. I can't say percentages. I can't say whether God permits it at seasons. But I do know biblically it is possible. Now, look at the Great Tribulation. This is a verse I want you to really get in your spirit. It's going to come up on the screen. There's going to be a war in heaven between Michael the archangel and his angels, and Satan and his angels as well. This will happen somewhere in the middle of the tribulation period. Now, Revelation 12 says this, there was war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought and his angels, and prevailed not, neither was their place, that means their headquarters or their position, found any more in heaven. And the great red dragon was cast out, that means he was cast out of the second heaven, the old serpent called the devil, and Satan, which deceives the whole world, he was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. Now, the context of Revelation chapter 12 is the story of Israel and a remnant of Jews fleeing to the wilderness from the hand and the armies of the Antichrist into the country of Jordan, into the area of Petra, where God will preserve them and protect them the last 42 months of the tribulation period. However, it says that the serpent, who is Satan, sends a flood to destroy the woman. Now, this is really important to understand this, that if you go to Petra and you go during a rain season, there have been serious floods in Petra. Here's the reason why, because the water comes down from those mountains and it starts filling up the valley areas. There's something called a seek. I think it's about a mile and a half. I'm trying to go from memory, but we've been in it. And we rode a cart in it. People walk in it, or they ride a horse in there, or whatever. And it's very narrow. And that seat can actually get so much water in it. One time, years ago, this is many years ago. It wasn't during our tour, thank God, because the Bedouins will tell you, get up to the mountains, climb the stairs, go up to the mountains if they have a group there, and they see that water, the flood coming, because 18 French tourists were caught up in the flood and swept away, and they found their body. I think they found their bodies later near the Dead Sea somewhere, where the water from Petra goes downward and empties out into the Dead Sea. Well, this is an example of how it's actually literally possible for there to be a flood in Petra that the Bible indicates there in Revelation chapter 12. And we'll notice this, that it comes from the dragon. God did not send the flood. God is not trying to destroy that remnant. It is Satan that's trying to destroy it. Now, how does he send a flood? We don't know. How does he control the rain? We don't know, because rain is a natural thing formed by clouds in the atmosphere. So, folks, in the future, it's very clear in Revelation chapter 12 that there's going to be cosmic battles taking place in the heaven that are going to impact the weather patterns on earth. There's great hail coming, the size of 100-pound hail is what the book of Revelation. There's hail mingled with fire, which is a volcanic eruption. There's tsunamis that are going to happen in the time of the tribulation. But all of this, remember this, God, the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. God has given rain patterns in due seasons according to the scripture. And the rain, actually, a lot of rain is good for the crops, but too much rain brings destruction. So we know that God allowed the flood to come where the fountains of the deep were open and the rain came from heaven. That was from the Lord. But then in Revelation 12, it comes from Satan, not from God. So remember this also, that when Jesus Christ was on the planet, the Bible tells us that he was in a boat asleep and a great storm came and he rebuked the storm. And when I looked at the Greek word, a storm on the sea, and I looked at the four Gospels, there's different types of storms that can happen on the Sea of Galilee. One is the winds that blow through the Syrian-African rift, and they come down that mountain, and they form natural storms. You see them all the time if you're on a Holy Land tour, if the wind is blowing real strong, and you can really hear them at night. Man, at night, you can, in the hotel, you hear that, woo, coming through the balcony. It's pretty amazing. So that happens at times. Then there's another kind of a storm that can be caused by an underwater earthquake or a shaking, because there's a lot of underground springs around the Dead Sea, and sometimes there's tremors. And that there's one of the words found where Jesus was in a storm called the seismos, which where we get the word seismograph from, which is being caused by a shaking of the ground, because the Galilee area and the Bashan area can be earthquake prone. So here again, Jesus would never have rebuked his Father if God was sending that weather and that storm, and the boat was full of water on one occasion. He could have sunk the boat, but Jesus had told them, let us go over to the other side. So the boat is floating full of water, not sinking, because Jesus had a word they were going to make it to the other side. But Jesus rebuked the storm. Now, we were in Cleveland, Tennessee at the T.L. Lowry Global Foundation Center, and I was doing a mentoring institute several years ago. And there had been an F4 tornado to strike Tuscaloosa, Alabama, where my wife is from, and there were tornadoes in Gadsden, Alabama. But there was one that we had 200, and I'm going to estimate about 280 people at this mentoring institute. The T.L. Lowry building sits up on a hill, And there was a F, if I'm not mistaken, an F3. It may have been stronger than that, but it was an F2 or F3, but I believe it was an F3. My wife could tell you exactly. But she calls me and she says, there's a storm coming, a tornado has formed, and it's coming toward Cleveland from Chattanooga. Well, I didn't know what to do. If I dismissed the people, they were going to go to hotels. I didn't want to, the weather was already, there was a chandelier outside, and it was already doing this. Cars were starting to bounce, and I said, oh, Lord, what do we do? And someone had a tracking, weather tracking, I guess it was Doppler radar on their laptop in the lobby, and they said, wow, this is getting bad, and it's coming towards South Cleveland. Well, first of all, our ministries out there, our ministry buildings, all the homes of my staff is out there. We're up there in a dangerous position. And I said, what do we do? And the Lord said, Moses and the Red Sea. And I thought, Lord, this is not time to talk about Moses and the Red Sea. He said, what did he do? I said, well, he held up his rod and commanded the Red Sea to split. He said, command the storm to split. And I've never heard that before in prayer anywhere else. So Mark Castell got up and began to pray, a really fiery prayer. And I said, tell it to command the storm to split. Now, on the radar, you can see a change with about 2 to 3 minutes after the prayer. But what happened was that twister actually spun off. This one headed toward our office and toward our workers and died. This one jumped the hill, and there were 37 homes that were destroyed. We actually had people that died in Cleveland, Tennessee as a result of that. Now, I cannot explain why a tornado takes out a good house, and here's somebody that's the meanest man in town, his house is spared. Only that verse that comes to me is it rains on the just and the unjust, mean that trouble comes to good people, trouble comes to bad people. And Job said, a man is born of trouble as the sparks fly upward. And so trouble comes to the good and bad folks. We know that. And there were boats that sunk on the Sea of Galilee. Thank God Christ and his disciples' boat never sunk. But there were storms that came and fishermen's boats sunk on the sea. So let's talk about this for a moment, because we're talking about demonic power and control of the weather patterns in the tribulation. How close are we until the Great Tribulation? What is actually happening? All right, let's go, because here we go. It is like everything is being turned upside down and nothing is stable or dependable. Now, I want you to think about these 5 issues. And we're going to talk about this for just a moment. We're going to add a little bit of prophecy teaching in here. The possibility of banks defaulting that need to be propped up, the dollar in decline as a global currency, fears of natural disasters, new Madrid fault line, San Andreas fault line, new fault line found in the Pacific Ocean, new volcanoes erupting, businesses leaving cities, closing down thousands of jobs, and AI, artificial intelligence, in several years, taking over 80% of the jobs. I've never figured that one out. So we turn everything over to AI. We have no workers, which means people have no money. So how are they going to buy what the computers are making? I mean, I don't get the way some people think, okay? So the Great Tribulation is a period of time for about 7 years, and it's accompanied by a lot of serious challenges and things of that nature. It's a time of God judging the earth. But I will tell you this, that when you read, and this is where I'm going to get to because I'm running out of time. When you begin to open up your Bible and you begin to read the book of Revelation, okay, and you begin to read about what is happening with a mountain falling into the sea, ships being overturned, the water turning into blood, an asteroid coming from heaven, and you see these things, here's what you got to understand. Those are natural things that have happened through history, but will happen all at one time as a form of the judgment of God. Angels in the book of Revelation are pouring out those particular vials and judgments. However, there is something happening on the earth. So in other words, the angel releases the authority of it to happen, and it happens in the cosmic atmosphere. But let's go back to the original question. So God does control at time judgments through floods, through hail, through fire, through all these things. And you can see that in the book of Revelation, talking about the wrath of God and the wrath of the Lamb, okay? But please understand this, that in chapter 12, Satan does produce a flood of water through a cosmic war. So the point is this. I believe there is so much cosmic activity taking place between angels and demonic spirits that the earth is feeling the impact of it in the atmosphere. Satan is the prince of the power of the air. He's in the second heaven, Ephesians 2:2. He's not yet come to the earth and been cast down to the earth yet. Okay, it's going to woe to the earth and see, John said, when that happens. That's not happened yet, but the battle is in the heavenlies. Because the battle is in the heavenlies, we have a lot of very strange storms and weather patterns taking place. Now, some people would say, Perry, that's the most extreme teaching I've ever heard. Well, just go to the Bible and study it out for yourself. The famines, the pestilence, the things that happen. It either is a natural design, weather cycles, natural design, or it can be God controlling weather, or it can be at times Satan controlling the atmosphere. So my point is, I think as we get closer to the time of the end, we're going to see bizarre weather patterns. We're going to see things happening in places that people said, wow, that has never happened here before. First time in history. So I would consider these things to be a sign of the spiritual warfare that is taking place. And what we can do is what we did that day when that I think it was F3 came through Cleveland, is we just did our best and prayed for safety and security. None of our VOE was not damaged. I think an awning was torn. That awning gets torn every time there is a storm, by the way. But none of our staff lost houses. None of us lost our lives. And they were kind of in the path of this great wind coming through. None of our buildings were damaged. Nothing happened at the Lowry Center. And I have to believe 280 people praying helped that as well. So Jesus rebuked a storm. So that shows us that we can do the same thing and not just praying for protection, angelic protection. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Under any kind of weather condition is probably what we need to do. So I hope you're enjoying the teachings that we're doing from the studio. Everyone is different. We're going to have some themes down the road, but I want to tell you this. We cannot keep Manna-Fest on the air in your area unless we get financial support. That's the bottom line. And so if you order our product, that's one way, or you send a donation in, that's another way. And God has been good to us, keeping on for 22 years, and we want to keep keeping it on until Jesus comes. So stand with us and watch this. And don't forget to keep watching. I've got something special to share with you.
Humanity's final battle is being set in array, merging men with super advanced technology. Commonly known as artificial intelligence, or AI, this new and at times frightening technology is said to be the greatest advancement of man's imagination since the beginning of humanity. But it comes with warnings from experts and developers. While AI can be used to deter crime, track criminals, and search for information at breathtaking speed, AI could eventually take over 80% of human jobs, replacing them with computers and robots. With AI, nothing about your private life, your finances, job, or family will be hidden. In the future, a male or female humanoid robot can become a walking, talking, live-in companion. Wealthy men are hoping AI will create the possibility of eternal life. According to experts, there are great dangers ahead. Uncontrolled AI systems could eventually destroy humanity. AI could also become a scammer's dream, using fake pictures, videos, voices, and accounts to blackmail innocent victims or transfer funds. In Perrystone's explosive new prophecy book, Artificial Intelligence vs. God, he reveals what others who have written about AI have missed, including 5 ways in which AI will be brought to utter uselessness in the future, as God, the creator of mankind, will have the final say as to when nature itself will release unrestrained destruction that will silence both man's modern technology and the electronic systems required for AI to function. Perry's new book presents stunning quotes, biblical word studies, and ancient history to document all the book's eye-opening information. He explains how an ancient clash in Eden and a massive tower in the plains of Shinar conceal huge historical parallels, repeating themselves during AI development. Perry explores whether the economic mystery Babylon mentioned in Revelation 18 could be the new AI city being planned in Arabia. Is China cryptically alluded to in Revelation 12 by the symbol of the Great Red Dragon? Will men and women marry companion robots in the future? Could the image of the beast in Revelation 13 be an advanced AI creation built to introduce a new religion and to be worshipped as a god? Perry exposes the goal of transhumanism and will shock readers by revealing positive proof of 5 ways God will allow mankind's most advanced technologies to fail in the future. Perry's new book, Artificial Intelligence vs. God, is now available through Perrystone Ministries. The offer number is BK-036, and you can request your copy for a donation of $25 or more. Order one of 3 ways: by calling toll-free at 1-888-21-BREAD. That's 1-888-212-7323, or online at perrystone.org. You may also send your donation of $25 or more to Perrystone, P.O. Box 3595, Cleveland, Tennessee 37320, and request offer number BK-036. This new landmark book is only available through Perrystone Ministries. Get your copy today so you and your family are prepared for the future of AI technology. We look forward to hearing from you today.
I cannot say enough about the book, which is called Artificial Intelligence versus God. I do hope you will take the time to order this book and get it while you can. Read it now, because this is where we're at, and it's going to get heavier, it's going to get deeper, and many good things are going to happen as it relates to the gospel getting out and people being won to the kingdom of God before the return of the Messiah. Speaking of the gospel getting out, I'm going to be coming to on March the 29th at Boaz, Alabama. I was there last year. We're coming back to that church for a Friday night service. Everybody in that part of Alabama, get in your car and come out there and to be with me at Free Life Worship Center, Pastor Jeff Stanford's church. Don't forget Warrior Fest. Don't forget the Prophetic Summit in the month of April. But in the middle of the month of April, on the 12th, 13th, and 14th, it's a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, I'm coming to House of Prayer International, Pastor Ron Brown's church in Monroe, Louisiana. I have not been there in years. I think I had really black hair the last time I was in that church. That's been a long time ago. I'm talking about the original black hair. So, Monroe, Louisiana, please join me for that. Now listen, perrystone.org, look at the itinerary, go to our online store, Perrystone Ministries Facebook page, and also the YouTube channel to get updates on a consistent basis. Thank you for joining me, and God bless you.
Warrior Fest is back and is bigger than ever, with an incredible lineup of teaching, worship, and ministry. This is the event you cannot miss. Mark your calendars for April 5th through 7th at Omega Center International in Cleveland, Tennessee. Warrior Fest 2024 includes impactful preaching from Perry Stone, Chris Estrada, Tony Suarez, Nick Walker, and Amanda Stone, with worship from Catherine Mullins, Eddie James, Lydia Morrow, and dance from Awaken Dance Team and Jacob's Tent Dance Team. Visit perrystone.org to register now for this free event. Come encounter the power of presence, the authority of anointing, and the strength of unity at the place where lambs become lions.
Perry Stone invites you to the most anticipated weekend in biblical prophecy. Join us April 25th through 28th at Omega Center International in Cleveland, Tennessee for the 2024 International Prophetic Summit. Come hear the latest prophetic insights from Perry Stone, Jonathan Kahn, Lance Wallnow, Bill Cloud, Mark Biltz, and Billy Crone. Go to perrystone.org to sign up now. Don't miss the biggest prophetic event of the year, the 2024 Prophetic Summit. Register now.